Hi, Sandra here from Create in Spain, and today I'm going to show you what I received in the mail, and that is a set of Derwent Academy watercolor pencils, a set of 36. I already used the Derwent Inktense pencils, which form a permanent ink, and I love them, so I wanted some more subtle colours, and so I've chosen this package, and this is what I've got. You can see all the nice pencils here. There we go. It's a pretty good colour spectrum, the set of 36. Now, what I like to do when I get a new set of pencils or paints is do some colour swatches. So I've done that for these. And if I show you the colours, I label the colours. I make little squares with permanent marker. If you're going to do this and use a marker, make sure it is a permanent one, otherwise it will bleed into your colours and that won't be very useful. Okay, there you go, you can see all the colours there. And I have then laid down some pencil in each of the square, only covering part of the square, not the full square. And then I've gone over it with one of these water brushes and I've just moistened it to give me a colour. I've done it on watercolour paper because it's got tooth to it. It grips the colour better. It's what these pencils are really designed for. And if you use a very smooth paper, I'll show you the result on smooth paper, with the same colours you don't get the strength of colour there because it's got nothing to grip to. And I have then covered it in sticky back plastic, clear sticky back plastic, so that I can use it and know that it's not going to get smudged and dirty and just basically messed up. And I've made it the right size so it will fit into my box. Just put this lid out of the way before it falls down. So it'll fit into my box nicely, and I've got my colour swatches. Now, if you've not used watercolour pencils before, you might be thinking, how do you use them? What do you use them for? Well, because I do a reasonable amount of painting, as in pictures, artwork and things, I've got loads of paints. I've got watercolours, I've got acrylics, I've got inks, I've got blocks, I've got tubes, all sorts. But there are very few things which I find are more convenient to take out with me, if I so wish, than pencils. And it means I can go out with just a set of pencils and something like this with some water in it, and I'm transportable just with a sketch pad and I'm off. I don't have to use artist paper to do sketches. If I'm just trying to do a brief sketch of something, just put in some colours, then I can use another cheaper paper and get away with it. But anyway, a watercolour pad or a sketch pad and a set of these and this, and I'm off. I can take that anywhere I like. The advantage, if I'm flying, and I sometimes am flying, if for example I wanted to go on holiday and take these with me, I could. I don't have liquids. You know how fussy airlines are with hand luggage these days? I can get away with this sort of thing without too much difficulty. So that's definitely an advantage. So how do you actually use them? Basically what you do is you use them like you would a crayon. Pretend you are, I think I need to get the lid back so I can rest on it. Pretend you are drawing yourself a nice little flower. Whoops, it's very difficult to hold something upright and draw at the same time. You might be able to just about see that. And so I've got my flower and I want a yellow bit for the centre. Let's get a yellow one for the centre. And so there's my centre. Oh, yeah, I've got that yellow. But I don't want all this to be blue. I just want the outer edges to be blue. So I can just put a few marks on the outer edges, like so. This is not going to be a great work of art, by the way, just in case you're wondering. And I can use my little brush and I can make that wet. I can just wipe it off on a piece of kitchen towel and then I can go over this like so. And you can see now that you can get the variation of colour that you would get with watercolour paints simply by using the pencil. More pencil where you want it darker, less pencil where you don't want the colour, or indeed none at all. And if you decide you haven't quite got the effect you want, or not quite enough colour, you can take your pencil and you can go back over it and add some more. I'm going to put some more on these so you can see. And you can blend that in the same way that you would if you're using watercolour paints. Okay, so obviously the stiffer the brush that you have, the more softening of the crayons that you can get. And this particular one is quite thin and relatively soft. So that is how you would actually use them. You can blend the colours together. So if I put yellow down and then some blue, and then moisten that, start off with the yellow, gradually going over the blue, and you can see that's now going to a green and then fading off. Okay, so that is how you use the watercolour pencils. Now I love them myself, but I also think that if you have a child who has shown an interest in painting, but you don't have any idea of how to paint yourself, or you don't have the skills yourself to show them how to use watercolours, this makes it easier for them to learn. It's easy to put down, it's a little more controllable if you're putting down something dry and then moistening it. So those are the watercolours, and I'm really happy with them. I think it's a great colour selection, and I'm going to have lots of fun with those. I also use them for small items, like if I'm making cards and things like that, and doing pictures to go on cards, then I'll quite often use my watercolour pencils to do that. Now, regards the other ones that I have, I'll briefly show you the other ones, or at least the lid for the other ones I can show you. If I pick it off the tin. Here we go. These are the Inktense ones. Now the difference with this is they form a permanent ink once they're wet and then dried. And the colours are more intense. Colours for these, for example, set of 24, much brighter if you compare those to the watercolour ones. Okay, so they're on the same paper, but these are much brighter, much stronger colours than these. These are traditional watercolour colours, if you see what I mean. And these are much stronger. So depending on what sort of effect you want as to which one you go for. Also with the Inktense, I believe, because they form a permanent ink at the end of the day, you can actually use these on fabric. So if that's what you want to do with them, that might be a useful thing to know. Again, you can blend them, and indeed with the Inktense, you can put water into an inkwell or a palette, and you can rub the pencil in it and actually make a liquid ink, which you might want to do, for example, I don't know, maybe you want to spray a small amount of colour. Maybe you want to do some special effects. Then you can actually make it into an ink in the inkwell. Not quite so easy to do with the watercolour pencils. They take far more pressing and scribbling to actually make an ink with those. I think they are better used on actual paper and then wetted. You can use either of them, by the way, on wet paper. If you want to wet your paper first and then lay down colour, you can. But in general, I think they are great for beginners to colouring and sketching and artwork. They are great for people who already know what they're doing with watercolours. They're useful for artists of all sorts and illustrators and things. But they do have definite advantages if you're talking about children using them. Less mess, which is always a good thing, more control, and it's kind of like having a step in between going for watercolors and total, palettes of watercolors and brushes and so on and so forth. It's very, very easy to use, and it's easy to get pleasing effects without being an expert. So I hope you find this useful, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.